And we're live. And I got a special guest. So first up, anybody joining, I do have Megtooth. Uh, Decided to get him on, but Frederick himself has joined the stream to talk a little bit about OS6. So those of you who are joining in the comments, definitely post your comments. We're going to just talk a little bit about OS6, talk about a little bit of beta testing with Tom, and try to answer any questions. So I'm sure people will slowly join. Hopefully I did send the link back out. But yeah, so uh, I told Tom I did push the change to the dial up, and it's going to be. I think that's you. I think you merged that last night. But one of the things I saw in Tom's video last week when he was doing the live was the turning. When he was turning a little bit over, it ended up where he was getting that back and forth rock. And I think looking at the code on the dial turn, I played with it. I cleaned it up. So the new version, which I didn't post to beta yet, but once we get that pushed through, I think you'll see a lot better performance there. Hey, Kim, thanks for joining. So that's kind of the good, to me, that's the good thing about beta, because in all my testing, obviously, I know how I designed it, so I do it exactly how I designed it. But then when you see somebody like Tom or someone else using it, you're like, oh, I never thought that would happen, or I never thought they'd use it that way. So that's where, actually the videos to me, when Tom shot his video, it actually opened my eyes to a lot more, because even the explanation in the beta thread, sometimes when people are trying to write what they've done, it doesn't click as well. But then the video, Tom using it, I was like, so that kind of stuff helps as well. So that's where, as we get more beta testers and as we get more people using it, sometimes that stuff, at least for me, still being new, pops up a lot easier when I see somebody else doing it. Hey,
Yeah,
Mountain
and
Sabers, thanks for joining.
I've been holding out a little bit on doing the 6.1 update because I have fixes that I wanted to get in as well. So, but I originally meant to do it this last weekend, but it'll probably be in a couple of days. So,
Cool. Hey, Brian's on. Hey, Chet Osborne, thanks for joining. So we're mostly going to chat OS6. If anybody has any questions, obviously for Frederick, for myself, or for Tom. And since I have Tom on as a guest, I wanted to give Tom first crack at everything, because that was kind of the original idea. I had watched, if you don't watch Megtooth, I had watched Megtooth's live show last week, and I saw him playing with OS6, and that kind of made me realize, first of all, I haven't done a live show in forever, but also it's probably good to talk a little bit about this stuff while people are doing beta testing, and maybe take some of these questions instead of, there's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of information, but sometimes one question can actually help people get through stuff. So that's kind of what I was hoping to get accomplished tonight. But any questions, drop them in the chat. But Tom, what do anything that perhaps we can answer? Obviously, Frederick being the first expert and me on my prop trying to help out.
Well, I mean, I'm no expert, and there was a lot of documentation, Fernando, that you posted on the countdown to ProffieOS6, and I took the time and read. I learned from Frederick a long time ago. Frederick's like, well, there's plenty of documentation, and then I had to learn to go read the documentation. Frederick and Fernando have provided the way to get there, but you do have to read it. There is a lot of stuff that OS6 can do, especially on Fernando's prop file, but he's provided the resources to learn about it. And I learned about it probably in 2 or 3 days, enough to be dangerous. I don't write blade styles. I'm still not a coder like, Brian, Connor, and Fernando. I understand a little code, but I don't write these big, huge blade styles that Fernando's written, or prop files, but I know how to construct a config file for OS6, and Fernando's left you the cookie crumbs. You just have to follow them. And it's fairly easy to set up a Saber for OS6. It is a little bit different with the SD card. But outside of that, it's just incredible. The sound files that Brian Connor added, which he's no sloppy on the Crucible forums, they're awesome. The color change, the battery readout. And as soon as I programmed a Saber in OS6, I'm like, I want to hear what the battery readout sounds like.
Battery level 3.92 volts.
And I don't know. For me, that's like, even on Matt McGurry's prop file, getting the battery readout was always a cool thing for me that I always loved. So now seeing the new functionality in OS6 with the voices that Brian Connor made, it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to interact with the Sabers. I mean, they're more alive now than ever.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead, Frederick.
No, I was just going to say that as exciting as all this new stuff is, I think it is also important to point out that you don't have to. Like you can take your old
Yeah.
config file, you can shove it in there and use OS6, and it will fix a bunch of bugs and make things work the same but better. So you don't all of this new exciting stuff. It's overwhelming for some people, and like it is entirely possible to not do any of it, and that's totally fine too. So
Yeah, and I've tried to. I mean, obviously, I'm the mad scientist, and I went a little overboard, but it was a lot of fun. But most of the in my prop, most of the new stuff is define activated. So if you just took an old config, dropped it in, even with my prop, there is going to be some new stuff. The track player I didn't do a define for because that was something that I just knew people would want more. But a lot of the stuff is define oriented, and that's part of the reason I put the countdown page together too. Is I tried to break it up for the different features so that you could read. So if there's something you wanted, you could read what the documentation was just on that, because there is a lot. And you know, it's in all honesty, even Frederick said it during when I was submitting stuff. Probably should have done smaller pieces of stuff and submitted it instead of like building it all and submitting it. And I think I drove him nuts with that. But
I think you said that
kind
100
of
times,
snowballed.
maybe.
Yeah. I'm sure you have. You know what it was? It snowballed. It was like, hey, how can we just be able to change the font and change the style? And then you came back with some of your suggestions, and that kind of I was like, oh wait, we can do that. And then you put out I forget how it all snowballed, but some of the stuff you were just sending back to me as to why do we try this, it all of a sudden snowball, and the next thing we know, we've got this massive prop file. But it was, I mean, the end result is going to be worth it, but there is a lot there, and there's a lot of documentation because a lot of the stuff is new, both in terms of how you set yourself up, but the idea is to do the legwork up front. So you do the additional work on your prop file to get edit mode set up, and you do the additional work on your SD card, but then you really don't have to keep going in and tinkering in that, you know, for changing like ignition speeds or changing the color of just a blast or changing the position of a lock. Like the things that I usually got questions about, I wanted to make it so you didn't have to keep going in and tinkering just with the numbers in the style, but actually have it outside of it and have that menu to do it. But it's either you're going to keep your old config and then tinker with it in the config, or you're going to change to the newer config layout and then tinker with it on the Saber. The end result ends up being similar. And I did see, I'm sorry, I missed all the people who joined. We were obviously talking if I didn't call you out. We got Bobby on, we got Ender, Ken of the Hill, Alex. Okay, let's see. We've got Alex has a question, actually. Let me get a couple of these questions in. I did promise. So gesture control. So I think you mean the gesture sleep, Alex, and hopefully you're still on. I realized you posted that a few minutes ago. The gesture sleep, the twist, I think, is what people get hung up with. You're going to have to twist back and forth. So it's a quick rock back and forth. If you're only holding the button and you only get a single direction twist, you're not going to activate the gesture sleep mode. So twist, and I think Tom's showing it on his screen. Twist is it's probably more the motion you have to do. So you're, oh man, I'm getting myself melted with the 1 button, 2 button. I used to know all my controls front and back, like the back of my hand, and then I dove into 1 button, and now I question myself on the controls because jumping back and forth between the props steps. But I'm pretty sure it's hold, aux, and twist. And the twist, it's like revving a motorcycle. So it's you got to go both directions. Figure about a quarter turn or more both directions in quick succession. That'll do the twist. If you're just holding the aux button and you're only going one way, you will go into track player because the twist didn't get recognized, so it considers it just to be the long click on your aux button. So that's probably what you're experiencing. If it continues though, post in the beta thread, we'll have a closer look, but that would be my guess.
And if it's the same twist recognition that I used, then don't do it too fast. You have to like hold, like the twist have to be long enough, otherwise the thinks you're just like shaking it or something, and then otherwise it's not gonna do it. So
yeah, let's see. We've got start and not turn on. Oh, I missed that fellow. Let's see. We've got would be a Frederick question. So since you're on, we might as well let them ask.
Yeah, I have a thread specifically about this on theCrucible where I'm trying to figure out if there are anything else that is would make a good combination, an alternate Profi board implementation, and um, I've had a few suggestions, and I've looked at a few of these chips, and some of them wouldn't be bad, and some of them there's so far there's never been any sort of like slam dunk, like this would just be like a simple replacement, or like there's always a problem or two, and it's always solvable, but it's never easy. So and at the end of the day, the real hard question is that even if I came up with a new design, which takes a long time, takes months to do, and once I'm done with it, maybe that ships out too, and then I'm back to square one. So it's really hard to put that effort in without any sort of guarantees.
Makes sense.
So I kind of had a question that kind of goes off of something Ken Kanama talked about. When we're talking about copying presets, I noticed even on OS 5.9, I plugged a Saber in to web USB on OS 5.9, and copy preset was there in OS 5.9. Did you take that, Fernando, and convert that into the edit mode, that old copy preset that wrote to the ST?
And in all honesty, a lot of edit mode actually came off of the original web USB interface, and that's where a lot of the functionality originated. Now, Frederick made some updates to make it expand to do more, but that's kind of that actually is what led to edit mode originally. I actually had never used web USB. I remembered it briefly in a thread. I think it was on TRA when you first put it together, but I never really actually used it, so I lost track of it. And then when we got to talking about it just being, originally it started with just being able to kind of edit the styles and be able to swap styles out. And you pointed me to web USB, and as I was tinkering through it and actually using it, so a lot of the functionality that was there in the original one is what then rolled into edit mode. So the copy preset, the delete preset, those are actually functions that existed in OS 5. They were just you could only really get to them through the web USB or through the serial command. You couldn't do it any other way. So now we laid the menu system over the top that basically, it actually calls the same thing as web USB pretty much. But that's how it comes to be. And then it just writes it to the presets INI.
And I've tried to expand on the web USB edit mode so that it can do most of the things that you can do in the menus as well. So that the functionality should be the same. There should just be two different ways to do it. And like the idea being that if you like doing it through web USB, you can. If you like doing it on the Saber itself, you can. Shouldn't really matter. So
yeah, and that's the other nice thing is with the menu itself, most of the menu, some parts of the menu I kept just because, first of all, breaking them out actually became more cumbersome. I did see a question about putting a define for track player. I lost track of it. Some of the stuff I didn't define out. I left it as default because if you don't set up, like for the track player, if you don't put a tracks folder in your font and you just use the old just general tracks, the track player actually all it does is play your default track. It can't find anything else. So some of those you can actually, just by setting up your SD one way or the other, the OS actually handles. So if you don't have the setup for track player, which requires the tracks folder within your font or common folder, it's just going to find that default track that's in your config originally, and that's all it's going to use. And then I saw another one. Let's see. Step by step. So there's so much in OS 6, I can't do a step by step. It would be probably a several day long video that would be very hard to shoot. And there's more documentation that needs to happen. So most of the documentation that I put together, and actually I do have the screen up, I think. I'm going to switch over. And obviously everything's going to key through the beta thread. And I've gotten a few questions. Hopefully we can see it. I think this comment's going to cover it. But at the bottom, this is everything that we still need testing too. If you want to help out with beta, check out the first post of the beta testing thread. See anything that doesn't say tested by. I know Frederick's working on this one right now, but anything in here that doesn't say tested by, that means we still kind of need it looked at. But for the documentation stuff, because I've gotten questions on this offline, is under this additional resources, I put together this countdown page, and it's linked here. It might be hard to see in the screen, but essentially I broke out all the different features, and wherever possible, I link to more information. So about my prop file, edit mode has obviously a lot of documentation. So clicking through these links, you'll get more info. So it's really going to be, this would be kind of your center point, which is what it's intended to be for all the stuff, at least the stuff that needs some setup. There's obviously a lot of other stuff in OS 6, but this would be your start point, and then reading through and clicking onto these buttons will take you to additional pages with more information. So like this will launch you to a secondary page that gives you more information about what's required. It explains everything, and then I did have a question that came up about the sound prompt. I saw that popped up on the Crucible. It's actually in edit mode. I have to add it in another place, but that's here. So you can get your additional resources and you can read up on it. But there is a lot of documentation because there's a lot of new stuff. But it's going to all basically, the start point would be the beta thread, and then the countdown page, and then from the countdown page it branches out to all the other stuff. So that's at this point it's mostly going to be reading, just because it'd be so hard to explain it just in a video, especially a single video. There's a few videos that I've linked for setting up certain things, but by and large it is going to be a little bit of reading. Let's see. And I changed our layout. I don't know if that's better or worse. But yeah, and let's see. Oh yeah, the workbench.
Yeah, I mean, the cool part about it is, if you have a Saber, so this Saber was installed, this was like the second Proffie 1.5 I ever installed. It has the Red Bear Nano V2, which was the board Frederick was suggesting back in the day. And, I was using the Teensy Saber control app to control this Saber. This was before, Dimitri's app. And that Teensy Saber remote, I guess that's what morphed into the web USB, Frederick?
So it's the same app. They use the same protocol. The transport or the way that they talk to each other is different but it's the same app. The only difference is how they talk to each other. And one thing that some people don't know, which can be actually kind of cool, is that you can use, even if you don't have a Bluetooth chip, you can actually hook up this to your phone and load it in Chrome, and it will work. Web USB will work on your phone. So like if you're at a con or something and you want to change settings on your Saber, you can actually do that through the workbench on your phone.
Yeah, I have actually edited that Saber on my phone, and that's incredible to be able to do that on the fly. But I've also edited the Saber, I connected to it Bluetooth on my computer, which that's really, really cool, really exciting. And even if you don't have the Bluetooth chip in the Saber, you can still connect into your Saber with a USB cord, and that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's actually I've once Frederick updated the workbench to use all the edit mode stuff. For a while, I was actually doing most of my testing through the workbench. First of all, obviously prove it out, but also in some ways you can jump around even faster because it's a web interface. So obviously, when you have a physical Saber, and I mean, I've crammed a lot into that dial, and there's a lot of sub layers, but you still have to get to it. So if you're the type of person who doesn't want to use the Saber or use the menu system, that's where Workbench is going to do pretty much all of it too. And it's just a web interface or hook up to your phone and you're good to go. So we've covered all bases. And technically, which will be down the road, you can do you can do all the editing just via the text files on your SD card. Now, I'm going to show it a little bit. It is a lot more intense though. So most users are going to use the ProffieOS Workbench or use the edit mode menu, but both those things are doing is just writing to the INI files. If you want to take the time to learn what's in the INI files and you want to type it, you can also do that. But putting all the documentation together for that is going to be something I do way in the future, just because it's so much more intensive.
I mean, while that is entirely possible and may be useful to some people, I think for most people, if they're going to get into that level, they might as well just edit the config file.
Yeah. Let's see, we've got a few more. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
The big thing about OS6 for me, Frederick, isn't for me. That it's not for my Sabers. It's for the Sabers that I send out to people. If somebody didn't want to get into Arduino, and y'all know, I mean, the groups, even the Crucible, there's so many questions that are, what we perceive to be fairly simple questions because we know how to program the config files and upload them with Arduino. But a lot of these folks that are buying, these cheaper Sabers that have the Proffie board in them, from China, they don't know how to program in an Arduino and they just want to add a simple font. And it seemed like those were the majority of people that had questions. But I think OS6 kind of opens the door for them to add those fonts without all the needing to program an Arduino. But for people like me, I'm still just going to go in and rewrite the config.
I mean, my favorite question of all time is still somebody who posted a screenshot asking where the file menu was, and it was up in the corner. It said file there. I'm like, it's right there.
Yeah, no, I mean the idea behind edit mode grew out of what we get in the open source group, the Crucible, the Proffie board support group, just what I've seen, what I get obviously comments through my channel, and a lot of it ends up being the same question a lot of times. So, that's where I kind of came at the menu from is it will be more. So, I mean, to me, like I have Sabers that I give to my son and he always wants to change everything. And granted, I know how to do it, but I was like, how about if you just pick the color you want, or if you wanted a Kylo font instead of a Vader font, like that made sense. And for a lot of people who buy these Sabers, they do want that simplicity. So that's where it came from. Now, that being said, though, like some of these, if you have a Saber already that has Proffie board, you're going to have to learn to update it to get OS6 onto it if you're already holding on to it. So you're going to have to learn still. But once you learn it,
OS7.
yeah, true. Yeah, there's and always it's going to roll. But going forward, so once OS6 is out and once installers have been able to set up really you're going to set up the config and the SD, and that's most of the work, and then everything else is handled. But then installers will be able to send out those Sabers with the menu or with the WebUSB ProffieOS Workbench set up, and have it so that the users can just, I want this font. You throw the font on the SD card, then you go in and you choose it, and you can swap that out. So it will make things easier, but there's going to be a transition period because I forget if it was offline or earlier, but you do have to do some legwork, either front end or back end, to get these kind of capabilities. So either you're going to do it when you set up your config the first time and then have the ease of editing after, or you're just going to always edit your config and just keep uploading through that process. There's a lot of it's going to be up to the person how they want to deal with this stuff, but this just opens a new door where if you do have an installer who does set it up right and you don't want to touch Arduino and you're happy with the stuff but you want to edit it, that's where edit mode comes in. If you want, I have been obviously spending so much time with my prop file. What really excites me, and we probably won't even get to talk about it too much, is all the style capabilities that are in there that I don't think I know what I'm going to be able to do because I was putting it together to do it. There's so much coming that in order for me to build it, test it, and ultimately get it to a library for other people, I have months of work in front of me. So even into spring and summer, there's probably going to be new styles that people are going to want. You're still probably going to need to upload to your Saber if you want to get the new stuff, because it's now once this is all launched, then I have to have the time to go and play with all the new toys. So we've got the new toys built, but then I got to go in and get a chance to build and play with them, because I have a list of stuff that I want to do, but obviously other time is being spent getting it ready. So there'll be a lot coming, which is the other piece of it. So you're still going to want to learn, but we are making it a little easier, I hope.
Yeah, I know that there's, I've gotten a bunch of Facebook messages and stuff tonight about the manual, and look, we're in beta testing on OS6, and I think the more people that get on board and start to understand this, that knowledge will go out exponentially. And I know there's a lot of pressure on Fernando to uncover the secrets of the Sith, as it were, is what he's done. in his prop file, but everybody be patient with him. We'll all get together and we'll do video documentation and written documentation, and just be patient. There's a lot of work that went into this, and it's still just in beta testing. So just be patient with Frederick and Fernando. We'll definitely, as a group, I think we've been pretty good about getting word out about how to accomplish things, and I'm sure that'll happen as time goes on.
And if you don't want to just sit and be patient, help. Like
yeah,
there's
I was going to say the same thing.
We have a lot of documentation left to right, and there's no such thing as too much documentation. So like the same thing can be written 7 different ways, and that they're all helpful. So and like a lot of our documentation is on a wiki that literally anybody can update. It's not just us. And if you don't know how to update it, well, that's a challenge. Learn something, write it down, and there you go.
Yeah, no, and a lot of it, I document, I put the documentation together. I still have documentation that I still need to write for more like the finer stuff. I wanted to get the bulk of the stuff that was at least necessary to get the testing done. And actually, I mean, we've had a good amount of people helping test on beta, and a lot has come out of it. And earlier, for anybody joining now, I was actually saying when I was watching Tom last week on his live show, watching him actually use the menu helped me to see a few holes that, because I put it together, I missed. So actually pretty soon there'll be another update. It's on the GitHub version, but if you pull down the zip, it's not there yet. That's what Frederick was talking about, 6.1. But there's been some fixes there, and there's obviously been some bugs that popped up, but most of them I think are fixed now. I have to update the beta thread because I saw you did the PRs. I actually lost track of the PRs as you merged them. I was expecting the one at a time still, and then you merged them last night, and I was like, oh, he did them already. So I've got to get in there, but yeah, if you're so inclined to test stuff out or write documentation, the more that do it, the faster we can get through stuff. Let's see. I missed more questions. I'm going to try to get some questions in here. So Bobby, thanks. Yeah. So, and actually, I do have that. I was going to show that to Tom too. Let me pull up. Hopefully, you guys can see. So, pretty much everything in edit mode. I don't know if I can. Where's my zoom on this thing? I hate this computer. Essentially, everything gets written to a different INI file on your Saber, and this might be. It looks really hard to read on my screen when I'm looking here, but hopefully you guys can see it. The presets INI, which actually SA22C wrote a wiki page about it a while ago. It still holds. We just expanded on it, and so when you copy a preset or when you make any edits, it's basically putting it in. So this is essentially one preset, and again, it might be hard to see, and as you make edits, there's going to be essentially just a bunch of numbers. And there'll be documentation down the road as to what all these mean. But these are basically, if you see 3 digits or 3 number groups separated by commas, that's a color. That's a color related to a specific color option. So this would be your base color here. And then if you see single digits or single numbers not separated by commas, those are essentially integer values which apply to a number of things. So they'll apply to your ignition speed for that style, retraction speed. And then the other part that I was going to show, and actually I guess this is a decent segue, is the test style. So what, I'm going to pull this comment off for a sec. So in the test styles, for those of you who've been testing beta, or if you haven't, if you look at them, the top section here, and Tom was kind of talking about this last week, which is what made me also think about it. The reason for this breakout, this is essentially just a really long comment. This is going to be standard coming out of my library once it's done, which I'm working on. The reason for it is this one style, this test style, it actually has, I did the math, I want to say it's 64 styles in that one, because what we get is the options. So the addition of options actually let a single style act in many different ways. And the first grouping is going to be what we call style options, which is controlled through the menu. It's also set up in the workbench, but these are going to be variations on the style. So this is a rotoscope style, but we can do different things with it. So we can have it so that the style runs just with a single color, which is what the default is, which is what we call option 0. We can also have it so it runs with 2 colors, meaning you can set a forward color and a backward color. We also have different variations on the speed of it, but it's all in one style. So the idea behind that then is being able to either change the style through edit mode or ProffieOS Workbench, or creating a copy and then making that. But you're going to load the style code up once, but this one style code, even though it looks really long, it's actually, because you can do the options, but you can also change your ignition option, which Tom was showing last week. You can have it with just a regular ignition, you can have a wipe in, you can have a cycle up, and you're going to be able to pick all of these as well. So you're actually going to have one style contain enough variations depending on how you build it to do that. One style can be used 64 unique ways in your Saber, meaning you can take one style, copy it out 64 times, change the options, and no one will look the same. And then if you throw all the colors into the mix where you can change every single color individually, all of a sudden that one style, even though it looks really long, it's actually also optimized. That's the other piece of what I'm doing in the library, is with what Frederick's done for OS 6, and also with the option capabilities, we're compressing a lot into a single style and then letting that style live in a lot of places to look completely unique. So you're going to get a lot more out of your styles. So even though, like the test styles, I think even most of my Sabers, I've loaded up like 13, 14 test styles. If I wanted to take the time, I could probably roll that out to like 200 presets where not a single one looks alike. And that's the concept behind it. Is it's also, the other part of changing how the styles were written was to make them be used in more places. So you throw a bunch of fonts on, you throw a bunch of tracks on, you load up your config, and then you can copy out all day and have all these options switch out, and all of a sudden you get all these new styles out of it, plus all the colors. Even though it's written here, I don't think a lot of people have read through what this means. But these numbers, the default being 0, style 1, style 2, style 3, these are all options you're going to change and get a new style out of it. You're going to get a new ignition, a new retraction. You can activate preons, post-offs, swing effects. What else? Preons. You can have like all these different things, plus the mixes of the colors, and then change the colors. So you're getting a lot more out of your styles, even though it looks like it's a lot. It's actually going to do more, and that's kind of what's going to lead to, I think, as more people use it and understand that's where you're going to see just how much more you're actually getting out of this stuff. And I went on a long-winded rant. So anybody want to step in, or let's look at some questions?
Well, Smooth Jazz Family asked, how hard would it be to upgrade to OS 6 on his Saber? And I know the Saber he's talking about because I built it. So I did send him the config file. Kim, or not, this isn't for Kim, this is for Smooth Jazz Family. It would be as simple as taking your config file and putting it in OS 6 and uploading it to your Saber. Now, that would give you OS 6 functionality, but it's not going to give you all this stuff that Fernando's prop file can do. If you want to upgrade to all of Fernando's 6 prop file functionality, you're going to have to reprogram main blades, and you're going to have to reprogram your SD card to include all of Brian Connor's sound files to work in edit mode. And then you're going to have to add a bunch of defines. So your config file that I sent you will work just fine in OS 6. Which then that gets to the next question, and this was from, I believe this was from Kim Kanama about subblades. So this lightsaber, this is my Mentor Graflex, and this one has, I don't know, I think 6 blades. I'm using all the FETs on the Proffie, and every blade has unique blade styles. These are not OS 6 compliant blades. And then the question came up last week, well, in fact, this Saber, that it doesn't have the edit mode compliant, blades, the accent blades, how is edit mode going to handle that? And Kim Kanama asked that question last week, and I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, and actually, I remember that question, and that was. So if it has a unique blade, meaning a style, and it's set up, then edit mode actually handles it separately. So edit mode for, let's see, so styles, colors, settings, they're all going to be individual to the blade. So you'll actually pick the blade. Now, as long as it's obviously set up where it has its own style, and that style has the edit mode syntax, and that's what is in those test styles, then what happens is the menu is going to look And it's gonna ask you which blade. So if you have more than one blade, the menu automatically asks you which blade you want to do certain things on, and it'll flash that blade. Now, if you have a blinky that's flashing and that's its default style, you're gonna have to do a little bit of investigative work because I can't change all that. But it will flash as you rotate, and it says the blade number. So that's the other part of it is, and I mean we've said it a few times, but from the start of me going after edit mode, when I very first was putting the menu together, I tried to record my voice to WAV files, and I tried to make it on the videos that I was going to show everybody. And I don't like the sound of my own voice, and I don't know how to make sound files, and it was terrible. And I was like, this is really awesome stuff, and I can't shoot a video with really crappy audio. So Brian had made some sounds for me in the past. So I said, hey, Brian, can you make me a few sounds with somebody talking, saying this stuff? And he did it for me. And I don't think he realized what he got sucked into. So a big thanks to him, because I started with, I think, asking for maybe 12 sounds. And I think we got upwards of like 90 now or more. But the language stuff and the multiple voices, that's on him. He decided to go after multiple languages, and he decided to have multiple voices. So he took it even further. But the first batch, that was my fault, because first of all, I didn't tell him how big I was thinking. So I think he agreed based on, hey, can you give me 12 sounds? And he said yes. And then every couple days I'd say, hey, I need another dozen sounds, and then all of a sudden it snowballed. But the language stuff, that was all him. He decided to go after languages. He decided to go after female voices and different robots. And he made a lot of great sounds. So big thanks to him for that, because I'm not good, even trying to play with Audacity. That's not my area of expertise. And it would be overly disappointing if my voice was the first thing anybody ever heard for edit mode. And I thought it just would have landed flat. So his voice sounds helped me to be able to put it out there.
So I don't think we quite answered the question at hand here, though.
Yes,
I was going to say that if you're using old style, regular classic blade styles, you can still copy them around. So like if you have 5 presets, they have different styles for your second blade. You can duplicate them, you can copy them around, you can do whatever you want to with them, but you can't really change them much. If you want to be able to have if you set up new styles that uses all of the new parameters, then you get the ability to also change the preons and the setup and all the length of ignition and colors and all of this stuff. But you can still use the old styles. You're just more limited in what we can do with them. You can just like duplicate and move around, basically. So move from preset to preset, basically. So.
Yeah. So I guess like when I wrote the config for this, let's say my main blade was one of Fernando's edit mode blades, but the other subblades were the old simple style blades, and I copied a preset. I can change the color of my main blade, but I might not want to mess with these.
You can't.
In edit mode.
Yeah, well, edit mode won't do much to them. It would let you swap styles. So say you have an accent LED and style, so your preset 0 or preset 1 has it blinking, and preset 2 has that same blade pulsing, and the next one has it doing like the turbine effect. You'll actually be able to edit. You'll still be able to take the old style and move like the style that's on preset 3 and mix it into preset 1 based on that blade individually. Because it looks, so what ends up happening is each blade in the presets INI, they have individual styles. They're numerical. You can mix and match. So if you set up a config and you have 10 presets and then all of a sudden you want to copy and make 11th preset, but on that 11th preset, you want the main blade style from your first preset, and you want your accent style from your 5th preset. You can pick all that. The main limitation of older styles, particularly for edit mode and also on the workbench, is you really won't be able to edit the colors or the settings. Those are basically the 2 pieces that require the new syntax, and for obvious reasons. But you can still mix and match individually styles. Now, the workbench will actually let you pick styles from across blades, whereas the menu, we ran into a limitation where if I have an accent LED, I can only pick styles from, like if my accent LED is blade 2, I can only pick styles from other presets for Blade 2. I can't ever grab from Blade 1 or Blade 3 and move it to Blade 2. ProffieOS Workbench will let you grab styles from other blades. So if you have, like, I know Ken has, like, I think 10, 15, 20 accents, I think he was testing. Even if you don't set them up with the syntax for edit mode, you'll be able to mix and match those. Now, it'll be blade specific with edit mode. If you go to Workbench, you can actually cross them up. If you have one that does a pulse and one that does a turbine and one that does some other crazy effect and you want to switch those around, the Workbench will let you actually cross them up as much as you want. Edit mode will require that they're assigned to that blade in some preset.
One thing we should probably document somewhere, which I'm actually not sure where the right place is right now, but like if you have an old style, it's fairly easy to insert the get arg in there to make it possible to change the colors with the Workbench without changing the style at all, just modifying the style to add a few things in there so that each of the colors get an argument that you can then change through the Workbench or through edit mode. And that way you can have like a lot of the new styles that you have, they have 20 different arguments. You might not want that or be able to do that for an older style, but maybe if you can set the main color and the accent color, like that goes a long way towards customizing that style. So
yeah, and that'll be, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of documentation that'll need to be done. It isn't, yeah, I mean, dropping those in is actually probably not going to be very difficult for people. The trickier part where it comes in will be the integer values, the integer arguments, because those all are very specific. So the options are basically one thing, but then you have your timings, which would be another thing, and then you also also using integers, you also get your positioning. So like the emitter size, the melt size, drag size, lockup position.
yeah,
so
no, I don't think anybody will be using all of the arguments that we have defined. But I mean, I feel like it should be relatively easy to be like, okay, this is my main color. So I need to replace it with get arg main color, and then the number should be, and then you go look it up in the list. Oh, main color, there, put it in, and then you have a style that you can customize a little bit at least. And you could do the ignition time and the retraction time and maybe a few more things, but you don't have to do all of them, right? Because that would be crazy. If you're going to do all of them, it's easier to just go to your library and get a new style. So
yeah. Let's see. I got more questions. I don't know if that's a question or doesn't. Yeah. So no. If basically that's the beauty of it is that if you copy a preset, you're not taking up any additional memory because it's already the presets are already flashed to the board with your config. What ends up happening when you copy a preset is you get a new preset in the presets INI, which is just a text file in your SD. It's not adding to the memory on the board. It's not doing that. What happens is obviously when the Saber boots up, it then sees that 11th preset or whatever number preset exists, and then within that, the INI is telling it, all right, use this font, use this style for this blade, use these colors, and then it's just replicating it from what was already on the board. So like, yeah, you can, when I was talking earlier about like these styles, that a lot of the test ones, I'm pretty sure I did the math right, is like 64 unique combinations. It only loads once, and then you just copy it out 64 times. It still only has that original space taken up on the board, which is so what ended up happening was when I was building these out, I added the options because I was testing, and I said, a lot of times people just want like a different ignition and a different preon, but they run the same base effect, and they just want to switch the ignition or add a preon or take away a preon. I was like, what I did was I tested, I put together a style 3 times, and I said, all right, each one has a different preon and a different ignition. And I tested it and I got the size. And then I took that same style and I condensed it to 1 with 3 options. And it's not a huge amount, but it saves space. So over the course of all your presets, having everything condensed actually will save some space. You're still, if you go crazy, and the library is going to do a lot of this for you, and I've got the framework built, but I still have a lot of work to do on it. But it's going to let you really pick and choose all of it, and you're actually going to get the option you can just build a single style, that has the edit mode stuff, but doesn't have all the options and all the craziness built in. Or you could go to town and build one of these giant 64 combo things, and it's going to do it all for you, spit it out, you stick it in your config, and then you get the capabilities of it. So that's part of the library is getting rebuilt from the ground up because I wanted to give everybody an option. I wanted the people who are used to the old way to have their way, but the people who want the new functionality to get it. So the library is going to hopefully be a starting point. The documentation, like Frederick said, if we write up how to change the base color and your blast color and stuff, that won't be overly challenging on older styles. So obviously somebody has to write it.
Well, I mean, doing these mega styles is actually really important, especially for installers who are going to send them off to people, because regardless of how many options you give people, those are the options they can choose from, right? Like if you have a style that has 64 options, another one that has 100 options, and like another one that has 200 options, great. Now they have about 300 options. Whatever you pick, whatever you choose, whatever styles you install on it when you first program it, that's what they get to choose from, because they're not going to be able to program it themselves. And so they're sort of locked into those choices. And the more, the better, right? Like that's kind of what it comes down to. And so there is a limitation here. Like edit mode is never going to be quite as powerful as what you can do with the config file itself. You can always do more with the config file. But when we give people hundreds of options, I mean, that's pretty darn good, right? But this is also why you need these styles that have lots and lots of options, because we want people to not get bored with it. We want people to be able to sit there and play with it and come up with new things, even though they are limited to a much smaller space than what we're used to. There should still be lots for them to do.
Yeah, that's kind of what I found. So, I'm getting ready to send Bobby Susan back a hilt, and it's going to have a beta ProffieOS on it. It says hilt. I just programmed the config for him, but I put in 3 of Fernando's test styles on it. And what you can do with those 3 styles is infinite. It has a fire blade, it has the Fernando's rotoscope, and it has the pulse blade. But like Fernando said, you can make different ignitions on each of those. You can change the colors on all of them. And when you start talking about the capabilities you can do on each of those, one of those blade styles, just one of those test blade styles turns into, umpteen million different ways you can run it. And, I understand the space savings part of it. It's just what I didn't understand, and I understand a little bit better now, Frederick, after listening to you, are the tertiary blade styles like we've been running, like your marble on your Obi-Wan Kenobi Saber, and, the turbines that I've been running and a lot of the Graflex builds that I've made. What are we going to do with those, I guess, is the big question.
Yeah, those will all run. I actually never got a setup where I could use the marble style. I still haven't built a Saber that can use it. So,
I mean, my recommendation would simply be to, like, for a lot of that stuff, we can use the same arguments that we already have numbers for. Like we can have a base color, like you can change the base color. That's easy, right? You may be able to add something that changes the number of marbles or the weight of the marble. We can parameterize these styles using the arguments that we've already defined. If we need new arguments, we can add them, but that's a bigger ask. So because that needs like support in the menus, and like it needs more work. But like we have so many arguments already, like we should be able to parameterize these styles and make them interact with edit mode in ways. But like they might not have millions of options like the ones that Fernando makes, but like if you can change the color and you can change maybe one other parameter, that's still way better than where we were before. So
yeah, and actually the style option that's there, and I forget the style option argument is kind of a catch-all, because I actually in the library I've already started building accent styles, and I haven't gotten to this point yet, but the idea, so most of your accents, you're kind of limited, right? Like most accents are, a string of LEDs, or you got your PCB, but you really end up using a handful of styles. So what I'm building in the accent section for the library is actually going to let you combine a bunch of them into a single style. And then for space saving, you're actually going to take that style and use it in every preset, and then just toggle them. So you would build your marble, build your turbine, build your pulse, build your, all of them into one. And then by repeating that style in every preset, you actually end up saving even more space because you don't have unique styles for that blade. That blade actually runs one style in each preset, so it's really one time. And then you toggle the option, and that option switches the base style. So the style option argument is kind of there for that. The style option argument I made is a catch-all. So it's going to be in my library. It'll be, sometimes it's a combination of colors. It's like, so one style, option 0 has one color, option 1 has 2 colors, so it'd be base and alt. Option 3 will actually be like a rainbow. Option 4 could be split blade, where like the bottom half of the emitter is base color, the top half is alt color. Like, that's the idea of it. But then on another style, we actually set up the parameter to actually control like brown noise flicker. You can change the style option to change the flicker speed. So that one's kind of probably would lend itself right away to accents, because it really is, it's an integer that can be used in a lot of places. And it just, the idea behind it is that you're changing what the style does. So that would be where that's where I'm intending to stick it for the library. And that would probably be the easiest way for people to take that one argument and use it in a lot of ways if they do have a lot of blades.
Hey, a while back, Minty Hobo asked what our favorite hilts are. And, I'll throw that out there. There's mine.
I missed it.
There's no doubt Graflex is mine. I don't know what Frederick's and Fernando's is. We'll have to let them answer that.
Graflex.
Mine is always my first Kylo, because so I learned on it, but that son of a bitch took me so much blood, sweat, and tears that it just is. I mean, the amount of machining I had to do to get the friggin' holders into the Quillians was, I think I spent weeks I think I bought like 200 sanding drums on my Dremel and burned through all of them just to get the damn connector in there. So that one's always going to be my favorite, just because I spent the most time making that one. So.
Yeah, those Corbanth crossguard 2s were tough to hone out to 7/8. That's for sure. And I've done 4 of them, and I'm not going to do any more.
I did 3, and I tried my hand. I did sell 2 of them to people, but it took me so much time and effort, and I was like, yeah, this isn't what I enjoy. So I was like, yep, no, I'm done.
I don't know. For me, the thing that the feeling that I'm looking for in any prop, whether it's a Saber or not, is that feeling that it feels so real that you get a sense of like holding the real thing. Like, you feel like you're in the movie all of a sudden, right? Like, you pick it up and you go, holy, is this, and like, I don't know of any prop that does this as well as a Saber. A well-made Saber, when it works well, you just turn it on and you're just like, wow, I'm a Jedi now, right? And like, whether it's a gun or a blaster or a detonator or whatever, this is what I want from a prop. I wanted to make you feel like I have the power now, right? It's like when you pick it up. And I don't know of anything that does that better than the Graflex, because it is so recognizable and it's so unique to Star Wars, and it's so it is literally, as far as I know, the most iconic prop in any movie ever. So.
Oh yeah. No, and it was. I mean, I've told the story a few times over, but it was Tom's Teensy Saber Kylo that he did, and he did the video with the flame blade way back when. And at the time, I'm 501st, so is Tom. And at the time, I was building my Kylo, and most of the Kylos in the 501st back then, they had the black series, but they threw the hot glue all over it, and And I was like, I just spent so much money getting like the exact fabric and getting the exact helmet and getting the exact cut on my boots. Like, and then I'm going to take a toy Saber and throw some hot glue on it. And I was like, no. So I actually didn't carry a Kylo Saber for so long. And then I saw his video and I reached out to him and I was like, how the hell did you do that? And he started telling me about it. And luckily I came in right at the time when you were doing your first run on the original Proffie board. And I didn't even know anything about installing Sabers, but I was like, I don't care. I just want to do that. And then it just snowballed from there. But it was because I wanted to finish off my costume with something that was on the level. And at the time, there wasn't anything like even the, like the Black Series hilt looked like Kylo's, but when you turn the lights on, I was like, eh. And then I was like, what is that? Like, I'm not going to carry that when I look like I do. I'm like, because it looks like Kylo picked up a toy Saber. But then his video about the original Teensy, and I saw that, I was like, no, that is what I need to have. And it then kind of obviously snowballed from there. But it was Tom's video of that, what Teensy was doing all the way back when, that made me get into Sabers, because I never even really looked at them, because all I had ever seen was like the Black Series and like I forget the old like flashlight with a tube on it. And I was like, no.
Yeah, the how I got into it is I originally converted my my Black Series hilt with NEC board, and I was having trouble with fonts, and Frederick says, well, why don't you use a Teensy, because it'll run any font. And I was like, what does this old man know? What's a Teensy? And by the way, me and Frederick are the same age, so I didn't know at the time. But and I started messing around with Teensy, and I think I fried the first one I put together. And I was messaging Frederick, and Frederick's like, "It's very simple." Simple for you,
sure.
man. And but when I finally assembled my first Teensy and got it working with NeoPixels, and this was before Smooth Swing, the NeoPixel effects were really what drew me to Teensy Saber, was the Fireblade effects that Frederick wrote in. And Smooth Swing started happening right as that Saber was built. That Saber actually premiered some of the first commercial Smooth Swing sound fonts that ever existed, which was the beginning of K6 Crossguard, but it didn't have the accent swings on it. And his what later turned into Balance was also an early Smooth Swing sound font on that Saber. It was what Frederick brought to us to make these props come to life is unbelievable. And Fernando, what you've done to make it a lot better for us installers, to spread the love to the masses that don't understand Arduino, makes me very happy. And I want to thank you both for everything that you guys have done, because man, these things are awesome.
And I mean, there's people who have been doing this a lot longer than I have, and some of them have added a lot. And the reason I got into it is because I wasn't happy with what was available, right? Like, I couldn't do what I wanted to do with the options that were out there, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll make my own then.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I don't think I mean, obviously I've gone a little overboard, but that's my personality. But being able to do everything we can do now is like that. This hobby's, I've been 501st since '96, so I've been in the Star Wars community more than half my life at this point. It was getting to a point where it was more going through the motions. Like I obviously I'm still big on the costume, so I still focus a lot of my time, and that's how I got into meeting Tom. Was I used to be a mentor on the 501st the Sith forum, because when I was building my Vader, I wanted every detail perfect. So like down to like, okay, what's the actual hook that holds the collar to the chain, like that exact prop. Like I had to find that stuff. So I've always been really detail oriented, and the Sabers didn't offer that. But then I got introduced to the world of Proffie, and then the style editor is what did it for me. Like when I could go in and tinker with just, okay, what if I just change this color down a little and this timing up a little, and seeing it in the editor, that's what made everything click. And then I just got off running. But that still, to me, what makes the hobby fun is thinking up new effects and creating new things for the blades, and that's what keeps me interested in it. But it's because of how you designed the Proffie board and your OS to work, is that it lets the user do that, and that's what I'm trying to pay forward.
I don't know, I think everybody appreciates this, but like to me, the thing that is really important about all of this is that it's open source. That means that if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, you guys can continue doing it, right? Or you don't have to wait for me to get hit by a bus. You can do it anyways. Like, it's like everybody can contribute, everybody can do it. It's not locked in, and it's not like, you don't like, if you want to do something, you don't want to have to wait for me to do it, because, well, frankly, I might want to. And in fact, that is the story of the menu system, right? Like, I didn't really want to do it because
No,
I
yeah.
have no need for it myself. I don't want that on my Saber. It's not how I use my Sabers. And I feel like putting a menu system on my Saber is like, it's like programming a VCR, but way worse, right? It's like, so I would rather see a text file, and I would rather go and edit it by hand and do all of that stuff. That's how I think, right? But because it's open source, and because of the way that we do this, we can all contribute, and somebody else like you can step in and help out and do things that is helpful for everybody, right? It's not, you know, and I feel like this is what it should be, right? And like this was my original frustration with the available options, was that I couldn't tinker with them, I couldn't change them, I couldn't make them do what I want to do. So and now you can, because, well, because open source.
Yeah, no, definitely. So let me get a few more questions in here, unless you had any questions, Tom. I see Brian put one in here. So actually, I saw this one earlier. The trick will be with that is it's probably going to be easier, Brian, if we explain how to swap it out, because the location of what you consider your base color in your style may be different from another, and particularly like obviously like a blast effect or a clash effect, that kind of gets limited to a transition effect. So that might be easy to find, but base color versus alt color, like those specifics, like it'll actually be in a lot of different places depending on how you build that style. But putting it in, so like if we basically explain, I mean, we probably explain here, but it'd be easier to show at some point or document, is that you have your color. Wherever that color appears that you want to be able to change it and call it your base color, you're just going to stick the argument in. And then that is what allows it to take a look at the menu or workbench and also the INI to update it. So it'll end up, if you have styles that need it, the color stuff it'll be straightforward, but I don't think it's straightforward enough where we'll get the editor to be able to do it for you.
No, I mean, the editor might not be able to do a great job of this, but I mean, I don't see why it couldn't do some automation here, where it could be like you click a button and it gives you a few of these arguments for free, and then you're like, okay, guess I'll fix the rest myself. Because I mean, it should be relatively easy for the editor to identify which layer is which. This is a clash layer, this is a lockup layer, and if it can then hopefully identify the main color in there, then maybe there's only one color in there, right? And if so, then it could just say like, okay, this is the lockup color, like, and
Okay.
It's well worth trying to do, and I would encourage somebody to file a ticket for that, and then I'll take a look at it, unless somebody else wants to do it.
Well, there you go. It's a good thing we had you on, because in my head I was like, I don't know how you're going to do that. Cool. Well, there we go. We got a new one. Let's see. Let me get a couple more.
I know earlier somebody asked, and I can't remember who it was, what programming language that the code is in, and it's C++. I believe it was Asa Rogers, but I don't remember. The question was a bit back, but it is C++.
Yeah, I'm behind on the chat. I apologize to anybody who has questions if I missed you. I'm trying to keep up here. The conversation is obviously moving. Let's see. Let's see. That's not a question. That's Mac. So there was a question about on Mac with Arduino. I don't have a Mac, but maybe somebody else can answer that one.
Yeah, I'm on Windows. I can't help anybody there. I know everybody makes fun of me because I'm still on Windows, but especially Brian Connor.
Well, so most of this is out of my hands, but the Arduino folks are, I mean, as far as I can tell, Arduino has been working well on Macs for the most part. But then Apple makes changes, and sometimes it affects how Arduino works, and then Arduino comes up with a fix, and then it works again. So far, I haven't had to do anything specifically for Macs. The Arduino people have made whatever changes are necessary. But if there are specific problems on Macs, then, well, I can try to fix them, but I have to know about them first, obviously. So.
Yeah, let's see. I'm just trying to catch up on comments if there's anything anybody saw. Yeah, there's the C++ question. We answered that. Yeah, so you're going to have to put this together, Frederick, since you're the architect. But I think at some point you'll have to document all the I've read the little excerpt you had given Dimitri forever ago about how your original thought process into it. But I don't know if a lot of people even read that. That'd probably be a nice little look back History Channel type documentary you could put together there.
I mean, all of this stuff is documented on a board somewhere. So, like, if you really want to go far way back, you have to go back to the. Actually, this thread might not exist anymore because I created a thread on the first board I ever went to try to build build my teensy sabers. Was the what's the store called?
Oh, the Custom Saber Shop?
Yes, Custom Saber Shop. Thank you. And their board, and they were like, no, we only allow talking about our products here. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And I moved on to a different board. And so, I mean, it's all documented somewhere, but finding it is going to be hard. So
yeah.
The coolest thread that I like was on the it was when Frederick and Dexter were talking about Dexter's smooth swing algorithms, and that was on not the TRA but the other one, and that thread was really interesting. I've bumped it saying this is history right here, this whole conversation, because that's really what wound up on both the Proffie board and the CFX with some modifications. But Dexter's algorithms and those conversations in that thread were pretty awesome. Yeah, that was on FX Sabers. Brian's right there.
Now looks like we're going to get some more.
It was on TRA. It was before it was called TRA, but it was on TRA.
This was a good comment I just wanted to post up. So we might get some more beta testers out, Frederick.
Yeah, I mean, so I really hope to get the Proffie board V3 out soon, because the V3 is way more generic. It has more pins and it's more functionality, and it's going to be useful for way more things. And I'm hoping people do. I'm hoping people use it for other things, because it's gonna be an awesome little board for, like, if you want to build a little robot or a little whatever gizmo. It's going to be able to do that in ways that the Proffie board V2 just doesn't have enough connectivity to do. It's too specialized. But I'm really curious to see if people will end up using it in other ways and not just for sabers and blasters.
Fernando, did you build a 3.7 Saber?
It's still sitting here. I've been so busy with the OS. I ran the wires, but I haven't installed it yet. I had started it right before the alpha testing started, and then since then, like, my free time is really more getting stuff working. It's here. and I'm gonna eventually. I figured let me get OS6 done so I can test the new board with OS6. So I did the hard stuff. Now I just gotta put the board in, but I haven't had the time. Like even like getting the time for the live show. Like I had to make some trades with the family to make it happen because all my free time has been trying to get the prop file finished up, and then the other part of my free time is trying to get the library actually built, which is going to be a long process, but it's coming. But yeah, I have one Frederick sent to me. I have not been able to do the testing because every time I go to wire it up, I get a ping or something needs fixing, or I got to look at something, and then my time's gone.
Well, they're awesome. You know, I was lucky to be one of the beta testers, and the way it triggers sounds is just so much different. It really has this more organic feel than anything else. I mean, it's really, really, really a good board. I'm just sad the whole chip fiasco is going on right now.
Yeah. Oh, here's one from Max. Hey, Max. This one's for Frederick.
So I don't know exactly what you need out of an R2D2. So, I mean, a Profie board can do a lot, but like if you need to drive 17 motors, it might not be the right board. So,
yeah, that's a hobby. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll ever get into. I've seen the price tags on some of those R2s, and that ain't never getting past the wife. Let's see. I'll take a few more questions. Man, I'm sorry if I missed anybody. I see this chat got really long, and I was not paying enough attention. I apologize. Let's see. So I know this is up Frederick's alley, right? Are you using a Profie board on any of your decorations?
no, they share some DNA. Like, let me see if we can. There's my Christmas tree out there.
Oh, nice.
Whoa, let's see. I don't know if you can see that much, but
It's got movies running on it. It's a big TV screen.
basically,
Yeah, wow.
There's 11,000 lights on that tree this year, and there's a Teensy V4 running it, and so there's no actual code sharing, but like there's a lot of shared ideas between them. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
I want cross lightsabers in my front yard, build out of giant neopixels, and each blade would have to be about 75 feet long. And my wife's going to kill me.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I may have missed some questions, but if there are more questions, so anybody who has questions about, there was a question earlier, and I meant to click it, and then we got sidetracked. The question about documentation. So I'm going to bring the screen back up for the beta thread. So because there was probably somebody who joined a little bit later, but if you're not familiar with the Crucible, definitely get on the Crucible, and it's right in the ProffieOS. You're going to want this, and actually I'll probably put it in the comments when this video finishes going to the recorded version. Within the beta thread, there's a lot written, there's a lot of information, there's everything being tested. But in the first post, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's going to be links to additional resources. A lot of the stuff from my prop file is going to start from this countdown page. And I think Brian told me how to zoom in. I didn't know how you, there we go. That worked, Brian. For all that I use computers, I still don't know enough about them. But it's this countdown to ProffieOS6 page, and I've already got it open. And then within this page is all the documentation is, I kind of tried to break it up by the different feature or option. So this is like the primary page, and then it branches off. So if you want to learn more about edit mode, this button will take you to the edit mode page, which then it tries to explain everything. I know it's a lot of writing because I wrote it and it took a long time, but if you read through it, it does answer most stuff. And then there are going to be additional links to more information throughout. So there's information if you need to get the sound files, if you need to find out what the file naming is. Like, I've tried to keep everything grouped, but there is a lot. So if you want to start learning about it, start in the beta thread. And then obviously the beta thread has a lot of info in it, but then the countdown page I've added. I tried to document as much as I can, so that would be your starting point. Even if you're not going to do beta testing, a lot of this stuff is going to carry over to when we launch, so it's a good opportunity to get ahead of it. But those would be your primary points of documentation, and everything's just linked off there. So if you just read through the sections, I've tried to link everything. I know there's a few things I have to relink because I changed some stuff, but by and large, I've been trying to keep that updated, so to make it kind of a central location for everybody. Let's see, we got a few more popped in. Any new questions? New comments, what do we got? Yeah, so the my current library is the OS 5. I think it says OS 5.7 or later. Obviously, the OS is now 5.9, so the later covers that. That's going to be, you can still use those styles. This was a couple of questions back. But the OS 6 library is going to have a lot more on it, but it is also, I still have a good amount of work. I'm hoping, because I get some time off with the Christmas vacation, I actually be able to sit down and do a large chunk of it. What's been happening is I've been obviously doing the updates to the prop file for beta, but then also as I've been building the library, I've noticed a few things that I needed to kind of consolidate to make the library work better, and then we obviously put that in the code. So it's kind of been a back and forth. So once the OS 6 library is up, it will make a lot of the transition to OS 6 easier for those who don't want to build their own stuff. That's kind of where I'm going after, but it's still a little ways out because of the work involved. And yeah, obviously a lot of people have thanked you, Frederick, and thanked me and Tom for everything we've done. And we're just, at least myself, I'm glad to be part of the hobby and be able to contribute. And whenever I see people posting, their videos or playing with their sabers, like with their kids, which is kind of what got me more and more into it, that to me is the great part of this. But we'll probably wrap up soon because I know Frederick's got to eat dinner. I've got kids I got to get to bed, and I'm sure Tom's busy. But thanks for joining.
Go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but I mean, having Tom join was a huge thing, and Frederick being able to make it was awesome. So I'll let you guys have a say at some stuff, and help us just thank the audience.
Why don't we let Frederick go last, because he's like the genie in the bottle, as it were. But I just want to thank you, Fernando, for all the work you did on the prop file on OS 6. That's going to make these sabers more usable for non-Arduino people, and I think it'll be a very good thing for the masses. But at the same time, Frederick, for creating the Proffie and the OS, it's been incredible. It's made our sabers really come to life. And thank you, everybody that's out there building sabers and making children smile and making kids happy. And keep building sabers, keep learning, keep pushing it. Everybody help contribute. Test on OS 6, get on the Crucible and help write the docs, because it's a lot to keep up with, especially as fast as Fernando's been evolving it. And good night, everybody. May the force be with you.
Yeah, I mean, the speed of these things are sort of amazing sometimes. I mean, it's hard to, on one hand, we sit here and we work on this for like, how long have we been working on?
OS 6 it'll be a year in December, because that's when,
right.
So OS 6 started, it was like December last year.
And to be honest, it really should probably be OS 9 by now, but regardless of how you measure it, it's still fast. We're making enormous amounts of changes in here, and they wouldn't be possible without having lots of people helping. And so it's not just me. I mean, I know I'm, started all of this in some way, but to be honest, I feel like if I hadn't done it, somebody else would have. So I'm just grateful that we're all being able to do this together, and I'm grateful that people appreciate the stuff that I do, and I will be doing it as long as it's fun. So
Yep. Thanks so much, gentlemen, and I appreciate it. And anybody, if I missed your question, if you want to, you can post it. If it's a question specific to OS6, post it in the beta thread, even if you're not beta testing, because your question might actually help some other people. So I try to funnel everybody to the beta thread on purpose. Part of it is obviously to get the testing done, but part of it is so we have that central location for people who are both testing or also want to come in and learn. So any questions I missed, I apologize. I know I said I was going to answer everything I could, but you guys chat so fast, I can't keep up. But any questions or anything that you're unsure of, if you run into any issues, post them in the beta thread. Frederick's on there all the time. I'm keeping an eye on it. You obviously have Tom in beta testing, and everybody will just kind of answer there. And then this way, as more people come in and are trying to learn about it, those answers are sitting there for them. So that's why we try to kind of force everything to that central location. But yeah, thanks so much, everybody.
We answer, everything gets answered on the Crucible. If you post stuff there, somebody will answer it. It's not going to go. It's not a black hole where things go unanswered. So.
Yep. Nope. For sure. So yeah, thanks everyone. I did see one more question from Max. I am going to try to do a video next Tuesday. I'm working on that. My calendar in the next couple of weeks is a little tight, but when I was able to get Tom on, I was like, all right, let me do this live show because I can get Tom. And then I reached out to Frederick, and when Frederick said he could possibly come on, I was like, that would be awesome. So I'm glad you were able to make it, and we'll do this again at some point as well. Obviously, when everybody has time. I love just chatting the stuff up, and I love being able to interact with everybody. But obviously, I wouldn't be in the hobby without these two gentlemen. So I owe both of you a huge amount of gratitude. Everything that I've been able to enjoy is a combination of Tom introducing it and Tom taking some of probably the most noobish questions possible about building sabers and not just like telling me to go away. And then obviously Frederick with what he made possible, and that man has answered so many questions for me. I'm surprised he still talks to me. But both these gentlemen are what made me able to do the stuff that I'm able to share with all you. And I appreciate both of you very much. And thanks for coming on. It's been a great time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
We'll talk again soon.
We'll see y'all later.
Have a good one. Thanks. Cool.